Hey everybody, Andrew here, and welcome back to my channel. So if you don't know what I do by now, basically when it comes to Canadian pop culture, I'm your guy. Now, if you've watched my last video, you'd know that I just covered a Simpsons episode called The Bart Wants What It Wants, wherein which the family went to Toronto and I analyzed the little bits and bobs about the episode. So, like any major movie studio, I'm just milking the success of my last project and rolling right ahead with the sequel. And if any major studios are interested, I'm available. So, King of the Hill. Now, given that I used to watch The Simpsons, I would also watch King of the Hill. That was the show that usually preceded The Simpsons, and it grew on me. The thing about King of the Hill is, compared to most shows from that era, it was a lot more relaxed and a lot more grounded. It seems like it only used its animation to keep the characters from aging, and when they wanted to, do something big. I like this show because, A, it was a breath of fresh air, and watching it now, I feel like Hank Hill is one of the greatest fathers of all time. This was around an era when Homer was starting to become jerk-ass Homer, and Peter Griffin was slowly turning into a jerk, so Hank was one of the greatest TV fathers. Now, here's the thing. The Hills never went to Canada, but Canada did end up coming to them in the episode Uh-Oh Canada. So, let's take a look, shall we? Now, the episode begins with Hank and the boys going to an outdoor furniture shop. Hank and Peggy find a very nice outdoor furniture set, and Hank, for some reason, decides, screw it, let's buy it. And while the boys are looking at stuff, they come upon one of the best things they could, a kegerator, a keg refrigerator that just ties everything the Hills just bought together. And with this being summer, it looks like it's going to be a great one, except it turns out that Boomhauer is going to be going up to Canada for the summer as part of a house swap. And that means that there are going to be Canadians coming down. So while they can, they say their goodbyes before Boomhauer goes and the Canadians move in. Okay, so right off the bat, we're doing something much different from my previous episode. Canada is straight out of the gate pretty much. I appreciate that. Now, when the Canadians arrive, Dale boos them, but Hank tries to tell them that, hey, there are neighbors here, and regardless of where they're from Rainy Street right now. Now, throughout this episode, they're referred to as the Canadians, but I'm just gonna call them the Huskins because that's their last name. The Huskins are settling in when the Hills show up with a gift basket. Their son Ollie and Bobby hit it off when Bobby finds out about the metric system, and Gordon and Hank bond over their love of lawnmowers. But Peggy is unfortunately insulted when Maureen decides to say that Canadian maple syrup is better in a not so subtle way. This rattles Peggy, and in bed, she tries to explain to Hank that they're not good people. Meanwhile, in Guelph, Boomhauer is getting set up when he meets the neighbor, Suzette, who brings over coffee crisps. Okay, now, these are coffee crisps. They're a candy bar with a coffee flavor. I don't know what those are, but they are not coffee crisps. But I'm guessing they realized it would look a little bit weird if she just showed up with a plate full of candy bars, so they went with it. Also, Suzette is French, and this is a little bit weird to me that she's so far into Ontario because aside from some French teachers, generally speaking, you don't see that many French Canadians that far outside of Quebec. Guelph is closer to Toronto than it is to Quebec, so why she is out this far, I don't know, but maybe they just don't understand Canadian geography that well. Still undeterred, the next day, Gordon comes over while the boys are putting the outdoor patio set together and brings over some of his brownies. They tell him that they're gonna watch football later, but he cracks jokes about them and tells them that the Canadian Football League is much more superior. Now, with my last video, some of you were surprised that yes, Canada does get The Simpsons. So some of you may be wondering, hey, does Canada get the NFL? The answer is yes. We have the NFL and we also have the CFL, the Canadian Football League. There are a few different rules. For example, the CFL football field is a little bit longer, can score 1 point, and there is the 3-down system that Gord mentions, and there are a few other rules, but this isn't a sports video. Now, for any of you wondering, yes, Canadians do watch it. In fact, the Buffalo Bills have even played in Canada a few times. So yes, we do watch it, and it's a big deal here just as much as it is in the US. And also, concerning Gordon's sweater, it says Proots on it, so likely this is a reference to Roots, a notable Canadian clothing company. Hank waves off the comments, and the boys get to work on a bar for the kegerator. And then they decide to invite everybody over and have a little bit of block party, including the Canadians. Hank reveals that he has frosted customized glasses for everybody and offers Gord Boomhauers. From there, they all toast, and a few of the boys start singing the Alamo Beer theme song, but are interrupted when Gord decides to talk about how bad the beer is and insult them. Of course, the women aren't faring much better as Maureen ends up knocking the patio set and giving the signal to leave. To add insult to injury, they leave Boomhauer's glass, half filled, in a geranium and then call the cops on the party, which, wow, that is a really friggin' fast response time. The next morning, Hank is annoyed by Bobby's metric talk and goes over to talk to the Canadians who are playing hockey, because of course. They offer him a Ryan Ginger, which I get it, ginger ale, Canada Dry, but a more accurate drink would have been a Bloody Caesar because those are typically drank the day after a hangover because they're said to help. Also, they were invented in Calgary. Gord decides to throw some shade at Hank by saying he's not used to their local customs and waving off what he did. Oh yeah, and Suzette and Boomhauer are having the time of their lives in an area that apparently has mountains. The boys are enjoying their bar when they get a call from Maureen telling them to turn it down. Hank is finally upset and decides, you know what? Screw that, let's make some more noise. They crank up the music and they drink hard, enough to annoy Gordon and get him to come over and decide, okay, you guys want to throw down? We're gonna throw down. And yes, he brings his own beer called Slewbacks. Now, with the bottle's logo, it's very obvious that this is a reference to Moosehead, a New Brunswick-based brewery that's pretty popular. Hank and Gord have a drink off and exchange insults before deciding that they're gonna have a duel using their mowers. Oh yeah, I forgot that Gordon's obsessed with McCullum mowers and decides to take one for a test drive, which, I'm sorry, what dealership is gonna actually let you use a mower before buying it? Anyways, the two end up playing a game of chicken with their mowers before the cops come and both arrest them for DUI. In jail, Hank is bailed out by his boss, but Gordon's left there to rot. Oh yeah, and more Boomhauer and Suzette stuff, because yeah, Hank is now using a push mower because he's suspended from driving, and we learn that Gordon's having a hard time in prison. Apparently he's received death threats and he's being moved to another cell. The boys feel bad about this and decide that they're gonna go get some legal help. They go to the lawyer who got Hank out, and he explains he really doesn't care about Gordon and that they probably can't afford his legal fee. But Dale decides to do something nice and offers a trade. Their kegerator for Gordon's release. Gordon doesn't do anything to thank his summer neighbors and instead leaves with a red-green reference. And yeah, they basically lament the situation and that although they had a frustrating time with them, they tried to be good neighbors. And that's the episode. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Oh boy, Canada is gonna be upset because they made them the bad guys. Boo hoo hoo. In all honesty, that concept I like. You know how rare it is for Canadians to be portrayed as the bad guys on a TV show or in a movie or in any media? It's refreshing, it's new, it's different. I appreciate that they tried to do something different with their Canadian characters. The only problem is this. With King of the Hill, there's a certain way this kind of thing goes. Usually we wait a lot longer before it's revealed that this person that they like isn't a good person. They're lulled into a false sense of security before the big reveal. But here with the Huskins, pretty much straight from the get-go, we already knew that they were the antagonists. I mean, short of Gordon wearing a t-shirt that had a middle finger and the Canadian flag, they couldn't have made it more obvious. Also, I feel like the middle act showdown was a little bit thrown together. Personally, if it was me, I would have just had it be a giant drinking contest on the 4th of July between Gordon and Hank, and treated it like a boxing match where you get certain shots that emphasize how hard each drink is hitting the other before Gordon collapses or throws up, and have Hank the winner. Also, it just feels so out of character this episode. I get that they don't like Canada, but they really hate Canada here. Throughout the show, it seems like it's more of a they could take it or leave it kind of situation when the country's mentioned, but they are really jingoistic here. And to make matters worse, this episode was part of the final season where by now everybody knows how this show's written, everybody knows how the characters work, and their whole reaction is kind of just out of left field, which is probably why I've seen a few other videos and forum posts saying that this is one of the worst episodes. But I'll give them credit where credit is due. At least they did something new with the Canadian characters, but there's still a lot of issues, and here's probably one of my biggest ones. Okay, so the Canadians don't like America. Now, going from Guelph to Texas is a 24-hour drive, so chances are that would have taken them 2 days to get down to Texas. Why would a family that can't stand the US travel 2 days and then spend an entire summer in a place they hate? It just makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, so that's this video. I'm hoping you liked it. You know, this is a whole new thing for me. Let me know if there are any other shows you might be interested in seeing me cover that had episodes dealing with Canadian culture. I'd love to hear it. And if you like this channel and you like what I do, hey, subscribe. I could really use it. All right, I'm Andrew, and I'll see you later.